Hello, everyone. Today we are going to talk about the AWS Global Infrastructure and actually discover what a region is, what an availability zone is, and some considerations to think about when you decide where to place your resources. Whether you have watched my previous videos or you're watching me right now for the first time, I am so happy to have you here learn about AWS Cloud Computing. But before I elaborate on today's topic, let me first of all tell you a little bit about myself. So my name is Fetela Yolanda. I am a cloud instructor and a study group lead at WirfonCloud. I am 3 times AWS certified, and I am an AWS community builder coming to you from Brussels, Belgium. And so back to today's topic, the AWS Global Infrastructure. Let's start small and build up, beginning with data centers. So what's a data center? A data center is a location where AWS houses the hardware that is used in building cloud infrastructure. And looking at this slide, you can take a virtual tour of what a typical AWS data center looks like. AWS does not allow customers to tour their data centers. They are toured by auditors and regulators to make sure that AWS meets certain standards. Next, I want to explore a few points about data centers, and this concerns criteria to choose a site location. So prior to choosing a location, a data center location, AWS performs initial environmental and geographic assessments, and these assessments are meant to mitigate environmental risks such as flooding, earthquakes, and extreme weather. The second thing is that these data centers are built with redundancy. And this means that there is a redundant internet connectivity, redundant power, so they can remain operational in case of an emergency. The third thing is these data centers are always online. And this means they are ready to receive workloads at any time. And so if something goes wrong with one data center, your workloads will be moved to the next available data center quickly. And fourthly, AWS continuously monitors service usage to deploy infrastructure to support their availability requirements, commitments, and just to meet up with that commitment. And they also maintain a capacity planning model that assesses infrastructure usage and demands at least monthly. And this model equally supports planning for future demands. Now, let's take a look at what an availability zone is. So an AZ stands for availability zone. When we have a group of data centers in a logical grouping, we would call it an availability zone. Most of AWS availability zones do have multiple data centers, but it's technically defined as one or more data centers. And remember that these data centers are redundant. When one data center goes down, another data center jumps in to pick up that workload. Next, let's look into a region. So when we have 2 or more availability zones, that makes up a region, and it's a geographic region. It's a geographic area. Most of AWS regions have 3 AZs. A few of them have 2, and some large ones like Northern Virginia has 6 availability zones. It's also important to note here that data centers are redundant, as earlier mentioned, but also availability zones are redundant. And this means that data centers have independent cooling, power, and networking infrastructure, and they are all ready to accept workloads within that region. And so there is some sort of connectivity between the availability zones. And in the case of AWS, these availability zones are connected through ultra-low latency network. And how far apart are these availability zones? Typically, they are tens of miles apart with like 16 miles away from each other. And this means that they are clustered together within a region. What does this mean to me as a customer? How can I take advantage of this? Well, there might be a reason why a customer decides to place his workload in a certain region. But once you select a region, think about resilience. Think about redundancy. I need to plan for resilience. And so as a best practice in AWS, most customers would want to have their workloads deployed in at least 2 availability zones. And you can see here on the chart, on this graph, you can see 2 availability zones, 1A and 1B. And so this simply means that if AZ1A goes down, you can direct your traffic to AZ1B. So because they are connected by these high-speed private links, it's going to be easy to direct your traffic to AZ1B. And in other words, it means that when you lose AZ1A, you can fail over to AZ1B. So that's it, and that's how a customer can take advantage of multiple availability zones in AWS Cloud Computing. So as you can see, this is the AWS Global Infrastructure page. And currently, AWS has 25 regions and 84 availability zones and counting. So the question is, how are these regions connected to each other? AWS has what they call the AWS backbone, which is a network that has been built, designed, and operated by AWS, and that connects all of the regions to each other across the globe. And then the next thing to think about is, what do I need to consider before choosing a region? So there are 4 things you have to take into consideration. Is there a governance and regulatory requirements? Often you might run into governance and regulatory requirements as to where that data should be stored. So think about that. The next thing to consider is proximity to customers. I need low latency for my customers. I don't want all my customers in Australia to come back to resources in Frankfurt, because that's going to increase latency and it's going to render my applications to be slower than what I desire. So as a best practice, choose a region that is closest to your customers so they can enjoy that user experience. The next one is service availability. So as AWS launches new services, typically it's going to be available in just 1 or 2 regions. But over time, they are going to expand that service to additional regions. So think about the services that you need. And if you need to take advantage of a new service, this might limit your selection of a region initially, but do keep abreast of these new releases, because over time, that service is going to be expanded to all other regions across the globe. The last and final consideration is cost. Just like anything else in life, AWS has fees and taxes with regards to their services and infrastructure, and that can vary from region to region. So think about the cost, check out the cost of the different services that you need in your region of choice. And if you are hesitating, or if you want to decide between 2 regions, that might be a determining factor. So we have come to the end of this presentation. I hope you did capture what a region is, what an availability zone is, what a data center is. I hope you know as a customer, it's advisable for you to deploy your workloads in at least 2 AZs. And finally, I hope you have committed to mind the fact that you have to consider governance and regulatory requirements, proximity to customers, service availability, and cost when choosing a region in AWS Cloud Computing. I hope you did learn something new. Thanks for watching, and talk to you some other time. Bye.